Thanks everyone for coming to tonight's show. This is Julia Anderson with Real Talk. For Black History Month, we are going to give little-known historical facts about, well, Black history. Sitting in our chair tonight is Dr. Madison Collison. Welcome to our show, Dr. Collison.
Thank you for having me here.
Tell us a little about yourself.
I have a PhD in American history with an emphasis on the Civil War.
And who are you going to talk about today?
I am going to present to you white abolitionist John Brown.
Please continue.
John Brown was born on May 9, 1800 into a family that were abolitionists and very religious. He was the fourth of 8 children. Both religion and slavery would play a large part in John's life. His father Owen was a successful tanner who supported the founding of Oberlin Institute, which is now Oberlin College. Oberlin was the first American institutions of higher learning to admit women and African Americans. He eventually became disillusioned with the college's teachings and stopped supporting them.
I didn't know that about Oberlin College.
At 20 years old, John married Diane Thieluk and fathered 7 children. They settled in Pennsylvania. His children would eventually number 20.
20 children. Good Lord.
After the death of his first wife and the second marriage to Mary Ann Day, they moved the family to Franklin Mills, Ohio. They struggled financially and Brown made and lost lots of money. After the death of Elijah P. Lovejoy, a leading Northern abolitionist of the day, beaten by pro-slavery forces, Brown vowed to, and I'm paraphrasing, give his life to the destruction of slavery. And that is exactly what he did.
In what way did John Brown do this?
Hearing of cheap land grants in Kansas for poor black men, Brown moved there. Kansas was hoping to get into the Union, but there was debate about whether they should be a free or pro-slavery state. The pro-slavery forces were violent in their wishes to bring slavery north. 2 events put Brown on a collision course with history.
What were these events, Dr. Collison?
The pro-slavery forces sacked Lawrence, Kansas, burning newspaper offices and hotels. They also beat abolitionist Senator Charles Sumner. There were also celebrations of these events by the pro-slavery forces that really made Brown angry.
I guess attacks against politicians aren't new.
Hearing that Brown's sons were the next to be attacked, John and his sons attacked them first. 5 men were killed. At the time, John denied killing them, but most people feel they were responsible for those deaths.
Another case of violence begetting violence.
Many of the leading men and women of the day met John Brown, including Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Martin Delany. Brown went to Douglass asking for his help in planning the attack on slavery in the South. Frederick was against the plan and discouraged slaves from participating, but he never revealed the plan to anyone.
Interesting.
One of the men who had agreed to help with the raid plan, and was an early supporter of Brown's, Hugh Forbes, revealed the plan, forcing John to delay it for a year. This delay made his defeat inevitable.
In what way?
The original plan was for an army of 4,500 men. But because of the delay, when the plan was finally put into action, only 21 men showed up.
21 men, yikes.
Brown's plan was not based in violence.
What?
Brown's plan was to try and deplete the number of slaves on plantations on the way to Virginia, and in that way, to cause the institution of slavery to collapse. The weapons were only to be used in self-defense.
Okay, I think.
On October 16, 1859, the plan was put into action. Initially the raid went well. There was no resistance from the people they encountered. But eventually the plan got out and a local militia was formed. Taking refuge in the Harper's Ferry Armory, they were eventually surrounded. The militia was backed up by the Marines, who offered a deal for Brown and his men to come out. Brown declined and stated he would prefer to die here. The Marines stormed the armory and most of John's men were either killed or captured.
Then what happened?
After a week-long trial in Virginia, Brown and 5 of his men were convicted and sentenced to be hanged. John Brown was hanged on December 2, 1859. But not before Victor Hugo attempted to gain a pardon for Brown, which failed.
Emerson, Thoreau, Hugo, Douglas, Tubman, Delaney, these are people we have all heard of.
Many historians believe that the actions of John Brown were the impetus for the Civil War. And still other historians feel he was the first American-born terrorist in the same vein as Timothy McVeigh.
Wow, that's deep. How do you view John Brown, Dr. Collison?
As a man so against slavery that he risked his life and that of his sons to defeat it.
Thank you, Dr. Collison, for this eye-opening presentation.
One more thing, and I think an important point to make. The Republican Party at that time was against slavery and wanted to help black people. It was the Democrats who were pro-slavery.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you, Dr. Collison. I'm sure that is news to a lot of people.
It most definitely is. Thank you for having me here today.
I want to thank you all for coming to the show. This is Julia Anderson with Real Talk. Bye-bye.